The city is noisy and panic. Cars are stuck in heavy traffic, honking loudly as frustrated drivers try to inch forward. Suddenly, the sound of an ambulance siren cuts through the noise. Its bright lights flash urgently. But the ambulance can't move because of the jam. Inside the ambulance is Marcus, a skilled black paramedic, focused on his job. He knows every second matters. Someone's life is at stake, and he has to act quickly. Marcus decides to step out of the ambulance. Wearing his uniform, he looks calm yet determined. He waves his arms, trying to guide cars out of the way. Some drivers cooperate, slowly moving aside. Others, however, roll down their windows to yell at him. "Move faster," one man shouts, clearly annoyed. But Marcus stays calm. He doesn't respond to the anger. Instead, he keeps directing traffic, trying his best to clear a path for the ambulance. Just as he begins to make progress, a white police officer appears. Officer Bradley walks toward Marcus with a stern expression. His uniform is spotless, and his posture is rigid. He doesn't look like he's here to help. Bradley's eyes focus on Marcus immediately. His face shows suspicion, not concern. Instead of asking how he can assist, the officer demands answers. Marcus notices the officer's tone is sharp, but he doesn't stop working. He politely tells the officer that there's a medical emergency. But Officer Bradley doesn't listen. His voice grows louder as he questions Marcus's actions. The situation begins to shift. Drivers and pedestrians stop what they're doing to watch. The tension in the air becomes noticeable. Marcus stays professional, explaining, "There's a critical patient in the ambulance. I need to get traffic moving." His tone is calm but urgent. However, Officer Bradley seems uninterested in Marcus's explanation. His face hardens as he interrupts. "Who gave you the authority to block traffic?" "Step aside." The scene becomes even more tense as Marcus tries to reason with the officer. Behind him, the ambulance siren continues to wail, a painful reminder that time is running out. Officer Bradley walks closer to Marcus, his eyes narrow with suspicion. The noise of the city seems to fade as the tension between the two grows. The officer stands tall, his arms crossed, and his face twisted in a scowl. He doesn't seem interested in helping. Instead, he's determined to challenge Marcus. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Officer Bradley's voice is loud and demanding. "Who gave you the authority to block traffic like this?" His tone is aggressive and impatient. Marcus, still calm, looks the officer in the eye. "There's a critical patient in the ambulance, officer. I'm just trying to clear the way." His voice is steady, trying to keep things under control, but Officer Bradley doesn't seem to care. He doesn't believe Marcus. He steps forward, his eyes filled with doubt. "I didn't ask for your excuses. You people always think you can do whatever you want," Bradley sneers. His words are full of anger and prejudice. Marcus feels a shock at the officer's words, but he doesn't react. He knows it's important to stay professional, especially when someone's life is at risk. "I'm not trying to make excuses, officer. I'm trying to save a life. Please, just let me do my job," Marcus says, his voice firm but polite. The tension in the air thickens. Some people around them start to notice what's happening. A few drivers lower their windows to watch, others pull out their phones to record. The crowd is starting to gather, sensing something is wrong. Officer Bradley doesn't back down. He's angry now, not even listening to Marcus anymore. "Step aside," I said. "Step aside now," Bradley shouts, his voice rising. He takes another step closer to Marcus, and his hand hovers near his belt, as though he's preparing to make a move. Marcus, with his back straight, keeps his distance. He's doing his best to remain calm, but his heart races. I understand your frustration, but please understand this isn't just about traffic. Someone is in danger. Let me go, Marcus pleads, but the officer ignores him completely, stepping even closer. The crowd murmurs, some people shaking their heads, while others whisper in disbelief. Marcus feels the pressure mounting but stays focused. His eyes flicker toward the ambulance, where the patient is still in critical condition, and then, without warning, Officer Bradley reaches out and shoves Marcus aside. The force of the push causes Marcus to stumble, but he quickly regains his balance. The crowd gasps, some even shouting for the officer to stop. "What are you doing?" someone yells. Marcus is hurt by the shove, but he doesn't fight back. Instead, he turns back to the ambulance, trying to push through the chaos. He knows he doesn't have time to waste. His focus is on the patient who needs him. But the officer isn't finished. Bradley's anger boils over. He raises his fist and punches Marcus in the face. The crowd goes silent, and then a wave of shock spreads across the onlookers. Phones continue to record, capturing the officer's violence for the world to see. Marcus stumbles backward from the punch, his hand instinctively going to his face. The impact stings, but Marcus doesn't have time to process the pain. He feels the eyes of the crowd on him, but more than that, he feels the responsibility of the patient in the ambulance. He's not backing down. He won't let this stop him from saving a life. The ambulance rushes through the busy city streets, its sirens cutting through the air. Inside, the atmosphere is tense. The patient, a middle-aged man, lies on the stretcher, barely conscious. His face is pale and his breathing is shallow. The paramedics, Marcus and his partner, work quickly, doing everything they can to stabilize him. Marcus's hands move with precision, checking the patient's vitals, adjusting the IV drip, and monitoring the heart rate. His face is serious, his mind focused solely on the patient. The situation is critical, and every second counts. His partner, a more experienced paramedic named Anna, calls out to him. "Anna, heart rate is dropping. We need to get him to the hospital fast." Marcus nods, knowing that time is running out. He reaches for the defibrillator, his movements quick but controlled. The ambulance hits a bump in the road, causing the equipment to jolt slightly, but Marcus doesn't miss a beat. He's used to the chaos, the pressure. The patient's eyes flutter open for a brief moment. He looks confused, his gaze shifting between Marcus and Anna. His lips move, but no words come out. It's clear he's fighting to stay awake, but the pain and weakness are too much. Marcus leans closer to him, his voice steady and reassuring. "Marcus, stay with us. We're almost there. Just hold on a little longer." The patient's eyes flicker for a moment, and then his eyelids close again. Marcus and Anna exchange a quick glance. They know that this man's survival depends on their next actions. Anna adjusts the patient's breathing mask, while Marcus monitors the heart rate on the machine. The tension is palpable. The sirens wail louder as the ambulance approaches the hospital. The lights from the building shine brightly in the distance. The staff at the hospital has already been notified, and they're ready for the arrival. The doors of the hospital are just ahead, and Marcus knows that they need to get the patient to the ER immediately for further treatment. The closer they get to the hospital, the more Marcus feels the weight of the situation. He's done this many times before, but every patient is different. This one feels personal. He can't shake the feeling that something bigger is at play. His mind drifts back to the earlier confrontation with Officer Bradley. The anger, the punches he tries to shake it off, but the stress of it all weighs on him. As they enter the hospital parking lot, Marcus checks the patient's vitals one last time. The heart rate has stabilized, but the patient is still in critical condition. Marcus exhales deeply, feeling the slight relief of getting him this far. The ambulance doors fly open, and the hospital staff is already there, pulling the patient out on the stretcher. Marcus and Anna quickly follow, pushing the patient toward the ER. The rush of hospital activity surrounds them, doctors and nurses working in tandem to save lives. Marcus hands the patient off to the medical team, and for a brief moment, he steps back to catch his breath. The hospital staff takes over, and Marcus finally steps away from the chaos, feeling the weight of his efforts. He knows that the patient's fate is now in the hands of the doctors, but for now, there is nothing more he can do. He feels a mixture of exhaustion and relief, but he's not done yet. The night is far from over. After the ambulance drives away, Officer Bradley stands still on the sidewalk, staring after it. His heart is racing, but not from the adrenaline of the situation. Now, he feels something else. Guilt. The anger that had taken over him earlier begins to fade, replaced by a sinking feeling in his stomach. He can't stop thinking about how quickly he acted, how wrong he was. He had punched Marcus without even knowing what was happening in that ambulance. As he stands there, Bradley tries to shake off the feelings swirling inside him. He thinks about the patient, the man Marcus had been trying to save, and the moment he acted like he was in control when he had no idea what was going on. Bradley had been so quick to judge Marcus and make assumptions. He had let his anger and pride get the best of him. He now realizes how dangerous his actions were. He might have hurt someone in the ambulance, or even made things worse for the patient. His mind races with thoughts of what could have happened if the paramedics hadn't gotten the patient to the hospital in time. As Bradley walks slowly down the street, trying to process everything, he hears his police radio crackle to life. The voice on the other end announces that the patient from the ambulance is in critical condition but has arrived at the hospital. Bradley's stomach tightens when he hears the update. He can't help but think that his actions, his interference, may have caused more harm than good. He knows he has to face the consequences of what he did, but right now, all he can feel is regret. The thoughts keep rushing through his head. What if Marcus had been trying to save someone's life? What if that person was important, someone's father, brother, or friend? Bradley feels the weight of his mistake pressing down on him. He had been so focused on his frustration and pride that he never stopped to think about the bigger picture. He never stopped to think about the person he was dealing with. He realizes that his reaction wasn't just about Marcus or the situation. It was about something deeper. It was about prejudice, about acting out of fear and misunderstanding. He had been unfair, and the consequences of his actions could have been far-reaching. He starts to feel ashamed, not just of his actions toward Marcus, but of the assumptions he had carried with him for so long. He thinks about how easy it is to judge people based on their uniforms, their jobs, their appearance, and how wrong that is. Bradley knows he can't undo what happened, but he knows he has to try to make it right. He has to find Marcus, apologize, and admit that he was wrong. He has to show him that he understands the gravity of the situation and that he is ready to be a better person. It won't be easy, but Bradley knows it's the only way to start healing from the mistakes he made tonight. As Officer Bradley heads toward his patrol car, still weighed down by the guilt of his earlier actions, he hears footsteps behind him. He tums, thinking it's someone from the hospital or perhaps even a colleague. To his surprise, it's Marcus, the paramedic he had clashed with earlier. Marcus approaches him slowly, his expression unreadable. The air between them is tense, but there's a quiet understanding in Marcus's eyes. Bradley stands still, unsure of what to expect. He's ready to apologize, ready to face the consequences of his rash behavior. But what happens next catches him completely off guard. Marcus doesn't speak at first. Instead, he takes a deep breath, as if collecting his thoughts. Finally, he speaks, his voice calm but firm. "Marcus, I'm not here to fight you, officer. I'm here to make sure you understand something." Bradley blinks, not sure what Marcus means. He stands there, waiting for Marcus to continue. What could he possibly have to say after everything that happened? Marcus: "You don't know who was in that ambulance, the man we were rushing to the hospital. He's not just any man. He's someone important, someone who can change lives, but not just with money or power. He's someone who's been doing things to help people his entire life. He's been the one out there saving others, just like you and I. You don't get to make assumptions about people like that." Bradley's mind spins as he listens. He had no idea who the patient was or why Marcus seemed so serious about the situation. The weight of Marcus's words begins to settle in. The man in the ambulance wasn't just another unknown face. He was someone who had dedicated his life to helping others just like Marcus. And now, Bradley's hasty actions might have caused more harm than good. "Marcus, your actions tonight, they could have changed everything for that man. If something happened to him because of what you did, you might never forgive yourself." Bradley feels a chill run through him as he considers Marcus's words. He's been so focused on his own emotions, his own frustrations, that he failed to understand the true gravity of the situation. The man in that ambulance wasn't just another stranger to dismiss. He was someone who mattered. Bradley swallows hard, his heart heavy. He doesn't know what to say. What could he possibly say to make things right after what he did? He looks at Marcus, his face filled with a mix of regret and confusion. He's been so wrong, so quick to judge, and now it's all hitting him at once. "Bradley, I didn't know. I was wrong. I acted out of anger, and I didn't stop to think. I understand now. I didn't realize who he was." Marcus nods, his expression softening a little. He didn't expect an apology, but hearing Bradley admit his mistake is enough. It's a start. "Marcus, I just want you to understand the impact of your actions. We're all human, and sometimes we make mistakes, but we have to own up to them. This is bigger than just you or me." Bradley stands there, trying to absorb everything Marcus has said. For the first time tonight, he feels a real sense of humility. He may not fully understand the significance of the patient in the ambulance yet, but he knows one thing for sure. His actions had consequences that go beyond what he had initially realized. As they stand there, an awkward silence falls over them. Bradley knows he has a lot of work to do to make things right. He knows that apologizing is just the beginning, and he'll need to prove through his actions that he's willing to change. But in this moment, he feels something shift inside him. Maybe it's the beginning of learning to be better, to understand people more deeply, and to stop acting based on assumptions. As the night wears on, Officer Bradley's mind is still racing. He can't stop thinking about what Marcus said, and how much he'd misunderstood the situation. His emotions are all over the place. He feels regret, guilt, but also a deep sense of responsibility. The confrontation earlier seems so far removed from the person he wants to be now. He's learned a valuable lesson, one he wasn't expecting, and he knows it's not enough to just apologize. He has to show he's willing to change. The next day, Bradley is at the hospital, waiting outside the ER. He feels a nervous tension in his chest. He's not sure what he's hoping for, whether the patient survived or not, but he knows he has to face whatever comes next. He has to do it right this time. No more rushing to conclusions, no more acting out of anger. He's learned the hard way that it's crucial to understand the bigger picture. When the hospital staff finally gives him an update, it's good news. The patient made it through. Surgery, he's alive, though still in critical condition. Bradley feels a rush of relief flood through him. For the first time in a while, he feels like he can breathe again. But there's still a sense of unfinished business. The guilt remains, but at least now there's a sense of hope. Bradley decides to go back and find Marcus. He needs to apologize properly. He knows that a simple apology isn't enough, but it's a start. When he finally tracks Marcus down, he feels more nervous than he's ever been. He's ready to admit his mistakes, but it's hard to find the right words. Bradley. Marcus, I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I acted out of anger, and I didn't take the time to understand the situation. I was wrong, and I understand that now. I just want to do better. Marcus looks at him, his face still serious, but there's a slight softness in his eyes. He appreciates the apology, but he knows that actions speak louder than words. Marcus. It's not just about saying sorry, officer. It's about showing it. Your actions will speak louder than anything you say. Bradley nods. He understands that. He knows he can't just walk away and think everything will be okay. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, both with Marcus and with himself. He's ready to put in that effort. A few days later, Bradley shows up at the paramedic station to help out. He's not there to take over, but to offer his support in whatever way he can. He knows he can't just leave things at an apology. He has to prove that he's willing to change and make things right, step by step. Marcus watches Bradley work alongside the paramedics. There's still some hesitation, but he can see the genuine effort in Bradley's actions. It's a start, and that's all anyone can ask for. Slowly, Bradley starts to build a new understanding of what it means to be a police officer, a person, and a member of the community. It's not just about power or authority. It's about respect, humility, and learning from mistakes. By the end of the week, Bradley has a new sense of purpose. He understands the value of listening, the importance of thinking before acting, and the need to treat everyone with the dignity they deserve. He knows that it won't always be easy, but he's committed to doing better. Marcus, on the other hand, begins to see a different side of Officer Bradley. There's still work to be done, but Marcus knows that Bradley is on the right path. And sometimes that's all it takes. Recognizing that we can all grow and change, no matter how far we've gone off track. As the scene draws to a close, Bradley walks away from the station with a sense of peace. He knows that he's taken the first step toward being a better man, a better officer. And while it's just the beginning, it's a resolution he can be proud of. We hope you enjoyed and learned a lot from this story. For more related content, please subscribe our channel and don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thanks for watching.